Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
Ahora empieza su programa, el show del Dr. Roy Aranda. Temas sobre los efectos que tiene la separación de los niños de sus padres, traumas que afrontan los indocumentados, violencia doméstica, el porqué de la violencia en las escuelas. Llámanos en vivo al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 6, y haz tus preguntas al aire. ¡Comenzamos!
Muy buenas noches, queridos televidentes. Good evening, all viewers from the very famous Tribuna TV, de la famosísima Tribuna TV. Buenas noches, good evening. Today, February 27th, febrero 27, we have a long February. It's a leap year, February 29. I was sort of looking forward to it ending tomorrow, but no, it's stretching out into Saturday. So we have as usual, I try to come up with topics of interest, trato de tener los temas de interés para el público. And I try to be motivated and guided by needs as they arise, as I'm aware of them in society, social needs, social issues, some themes as they come up that I think are very important and warrant attention and hopefully instruction, education, and assistance for viewers who may want to know more about these kinds of issues. So today, hoy día, tenemos un tema, lamentablemente, sadly, it's an important theme, and I say sad because the content is really tragic. El contenido es bien trágico. The topic for today, and I have a nice title, thanks to my good friend Dr. Peter Canaris, a shout out. Hi, Peter. Hate, the growing plague of our time. So el odio, la plaga creciente de nuestro tiempo, which shows really how infected, I don't know how else to say it, but I feel like we're infected. Our society is infected by hate in many respects, and I think it's also a worldwide problem. So today we will be talking about various aspects of hate bias and hate crime, and I have some wonderful guests today. I have the pleasure and privilege of having my good friend Dr. Shara Sand. Just say hello, and I'm going to introduce my guest a little bit more formally in a few minutes. So Shara's been a guest on the show before when we did 50 Years of Pride. And I've always been able to count on her for helping in conferences and presentations, and her views on social issues are remarkably similar to my own. And I couldn't think of somebody better, with the exception of Dr. Leonard Davidman, who's the other one here. Dr. Lenny Davidman and I, we go back many years at New York State Psychological Association. I met him when I was first on the council. We have a council which is like the governing body of New York State Psychological Association. And I showed up, it was my first time there, and I remember Lenny telling me at the end, I'd never seen him before, and he comes over to me and he says, Roy, you look very presidential, very important. I said, where are you coming up with this? I'm thinking that to myself. But we've been through so many things together, and I've come to regard Lenny as not only a friend but a mentor. Lenny also, at New York State Psychological Association, has many skills, and he has many things in his resume. We'll talk about that a little bit briefly. But he was president of the New York State Psychological Association the very year before I was. So welcome, Dr. Shara Sand. Welcome, Dr. Lenny Davidman.
Thanks, Roy.
So I wanted to start by sharing, as I've done before, what's the inspiration? ¿Cuál es el motivo de hacer este show hoy? Oscar's the producer of the show. ¿Quieres saludar allá de tu rincón?
Hello.
That's Oscar in the background. He's become part of the show. Oscar, por favor, el primer slide. I just wanted to share with you what the inspiration, what motivates me to do these kinds of shows, and then we're going to cover what the show will consist of today before I get into the actual content of the show. So, Oscar, el primer slide. So, I just wanted to share with you that December 28th was a very, very special day for me. Not only on December 28th did I learn about the devastating beginnings of earthquakes in Puerto Rico that we talked about 2 weeks ago. On December 13th, you'll recall that we did have a show on the effects of traumatic events such as, and in particular, the show focused a lot on the earthquakes and devastation in Puerto Rico. But on that particular day also, we had this horrific race, hate, racial, cultural, religious hate event that took place. And pretty much, I'm a forensic psychologist, so for many years, about 30 or so years, I've performed evaluations, I've lectured, I've written about all kinds of topics pertaining to victims of violence and the effects of hate crime, the impacts that they've had on society. But I was very moved on that particular day, and moved previously on Easter Sunday when we had the massacre in Sri Lanka. That was last year. And then in particular, December 28th, at a Hanukkah celebration at the home of Rabbi Chaim Rottenberg in Monsey, New York, in which a machete-wielding man / 5 people almost killed the rabbi, and I believe came very close to killing another person who's still very limited. So it's for these people, for the victims of crime, that I've decided to dedicate the show. So that's my rationale for doing the show today. And sadly, even since I've been talking about this and wanting to do the show, which was really, we saw this starting December 28th, and there's already been many more hate crimes and hate bias incidents. Por favor, slide 2. El dos. This is what we're going to focus on today, time allowing. I have several slides as usual. We'll be working off of the slides and sharing comments. And I want to put the slides up. I want to make sure that all the viewers have access to the slides, since the show is actually being recorded live on YouTube right now. It'll be accessible on YouTube immediately after the show and available tomorrow on Tribuna TV, Vimeo, Facebook, and other electronic platforms. So I wanted to make sure that the viewers who are interested can take screenshots of the slides or take notes for further review.
Can they get education credits for this?
Well, only if you apply for them.
I'm only kidding.
You have to apply for them and meet the criteria. So we're going to go over some definitions and background of hate, bias, hate crimes. I have a photo display of some images that throughout the years were very affected me a lot, and I want to display those and show you some different characteristics and different targets of hate crimes. Who are the targets? What are the effects of hate crime? What kinds of interventions are available for the victims? A little bit on hate crime laws. I just wanted to know what viewers who themselves may either have been victimized or know a victim or are in some way worried about possible discrimination. What's out there? What's available to protect you? Risk management. What can you do to protect yourself if you're in a religious organization, if you're out on the street by yourself, if you're in a park, if you're in a major sporting event? You know, what are kinds of things that you need to do to be aware of for your own protection and safety? And lastly, resources. What's out there that you can rely on or look at or consult websites and phone numbers for further information. What I wanted to do now is, to more formally give you a little bit of a background on Dr. Shara Sand and Lenny. So Shara, I'm going to use first names, is an associate professor of psychology at LaGuardia Community College, director of counseling at Manhattan School of Music. She maintains a private practice in Manhattan. If you want to give a reference later, we can do that. You can feel free to give your name, your number, your address, and all of that. She has a master's degree in music, so I don't know. While he's doing karate chops later, you'll be doing some music.
Yeah, I'll be playing some tunes.
Right. So her interests are in psychology, music, gender, and sexuality, and these play an integral part in her work as a clinician, teacher, writer, and speaker. She began her career and spent a decade working with those with HIV/AIDS, who, of course, have been victimized for decades. She currently has a private practice. She specializes in working with sexual gender identity issues and working with creative and performing artists. She's a member of the American Psychological Association, New York State Psychological Association, Psychologist for Social Responsibility, which deals a lot with social issues. I think I've told you, right? I'm pretty sure I brought it up also on the show, that although I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist by training, I think that my heart, I've become a social psychologist. I'm so interested in what's taking place in the world and how people are affected. The Performing Arts Medicine Association, the American Federation of Musicians, Local 802, freelance trombonist, and was that in your former life or in the early century?
It was in my former life in a different century.
Okay.
So I definitely make a distinction.
All right. Lenny, Dr. Davidman, he has a unique combination of being a practicing psychologist for almost 50 years, a member of Jewish Security Organization, which is why I said he was going to do a demonstration of karate later. He's a volunteer trained in counterterrorism and mixed martial arts. Dr. Lenny is a leader, sits on boards of numerous psychology organizations, president of a labor union for public sector psychologists. And I've already told you about how I know him through New York State Psychological Association. He's chief psychologist in Metropolitan Hospital, a New York City public hospital, and assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at New York Medical College. He takes care of other psychologists through labor union, representing public sector psychologists. There's a local, he represents them through a local for the past 26 years. He's also past president, he's past president and president right now of Manhattan Psychological Association, right? You hold that?
I'm past. Now I'm past already.
Oh, you're past. Okay.
It's 2020.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're past president right now. You were president last year. Okay. So then we'll recycle you in another year or two, something along those lines. Shara, also you were involved in that ethics panel in 2016 at New York State Psychological Association's convention,
Yes.
where we were talking about the kinds of effects and brutal treatment at Guantanamo, and some of the things that the prisoners were facing. And I know that was a big ethical conundrum that psychologists were facing. And I thought that it was very important to really talk about ethics and the kinds of mistreatment and abuse that was taking place, and what we were trying to do to rectify it, make it more public, for the public to appreciate and be aware of it, and not be so quick to either dismiss it or bury it in some ways. So let's start with the visual display of some hate crimes. ¿Me puedes, Oscar, por favor, el 3? Did you want to add anything to what I said, Shara, to your bio? Was there anything I left out?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I'm sure there are other things, but right now my mind is so full with many things, especially what I'm going to say today, that I don't think you left anything out.
Right. Lenny, anything that I omitted that you wanted to,
No.
focus on? ¿Me puede poner el 3? So I'm going to give you, quickly a pictorial display. This top photo, this is a picture of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in South Carolina, where on June 17 of 2015, a white supremacist shooter shot and killed 6 men and 3 women. This is one of the deadliest at that time church attack in U.S. history. The one beneath that, this is a gunman who opened fire. I'm sure the viewers will recall the Pulse nightclub in Florida. This was a gay nightclub in Orlando, June 12, 2016. 49 people were killed, 53 were injured. Majority of them were gay, and the majority of them were also Hispanic. The third slide is this was the a Charlottesville rally, the Unite the Right white supremacist and neo-Nazi rally that took place August 11 and 12 of 2017, where marchers were chanting racist and anti-Semitic slogans, and there were actually a woman was killed, and there was also I think there was at least one or two others. My memories may be a little bit short, but there were about one or two other, at least one if not two other fatalities plus injuries. Going on, we had a series of bomb blasts on Easter Sunday. This was hotels and churches in Sri Lanka. April 21, 2019, that killed 359. Think about it. Think about what 359 deaths in this mass bombing, what that's like. The one beneath that, 20 people were killed, more than 24 injured in El Paso, Texas on August 3rd, 2019. This is the 21-year-old man who wanted to shoot as many Mexicans as possible. He opened fire inside a Walmart. Tenemos los slides, o se perdió.
¿Qué slide va, perdón?
I'm on page 5. Okay, slide 5. Sorry about that. Viewers, sorry about that. Slide 5.
It was a cute puppy.
Slide 5. That's the top one is the Sri Lanka. The second one is the El Paso, Texas. Beneath that, bajando, we have the 5 people. You can see that. Are you able? You're a little bit baja un poquito más. You see the ones with the Hanukkah celebration. This is the one that I talked about as my inspiration for the show.
Okay.
This was at the home of the rabbi. This is a photo of shortly after that event. Going further down, this is a picture of females in a detention center at the border. Okay, Mexican-U.S. border. I wanted to show you this because it has been largely, I guess, somewhat underreported or underrepresented, the number of female and male LGBTQ,
Yes,
tremendously
I
victimized by officers, by others, by other inmates, by other people who are there, and raped, and it's been really difficult getting it out into the open. And a lot of them were doing it because of racial bias. So I wanted to show you a photo there. Perdimos la 4. Oh, show 4. We missed 4. Okay. Slide 4. This is interesting. This dog is not racist. I just wanted to make that clear. But I was so amazed when I read the story of a Scottish man who was convicted. Convicted means like he actually was not only charged but convicted of a hate crime charge in a Scottish court for uploading this video of a pug that he trained to make Nazi salutes every time it heard Sieg Heil. And he was heard telling his dog Buddha, actually it was his girlfriend's dog Buddha, do you want to gas the Jews? Come on, gas the Jews. And the judge ruled that the footage was anti-Semitic and racist in nature. And this was March 20 of 2018. I just wanted to show the viewers to what extent racist people will use props and other things for their to put out their propaganda, to put out their hate messages. Underneath that, the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh was targeted in a mass shooting on October 27, 2018. 11 worshipers were killed. Beneath that, 49 people were killed, 20 seriously injured in mass shootings at 2 mosques. So, tiene que subirlo un poco para verlo. Yeah, that third photo. This was in New Zealand, Christchurch, March 15, 2019. 49 people were killed, 20 were seriously injured, and it was the shooting that took place in Sri Lanka supposedly was in retaliation to this. ¿Me puede poner la foto que te mandé? I have a photo that's not on the slides, but I just want to quickly show the viewers as well.
Okay.
This is a photo, and I really wanted to put it out there for you to see this. This is a fairly recent, well, it's very recent, but it's already very highly publicized photo of an attack on a New York subway of a woman who was wearing a face mask, and she actually was physically attacked. And there were verbal hate messages connected to where she was from in connection to the coronavirus. So
She's wearing a surgical mask. She's wearing a surgical mask.
So I wanted to show you that particular photo because, of course, you know, it's a hate crime. But I did want to mention that on March 19th. We have been so inundated with news about coronavirus. Where is it? How is it spread? How many people are contaminated? How do you get it? What's being done? Is it a pandemic? Is it an epidemic? What's going to happen to schools? Am I going to die? What is going to become of me? It's become almost like a panic. That's developing worldwide, and every day you're hearing more and more countries telling you that they have like a case or more cases of coronavirus. So I wanted to do a show on March 19th that will focus on the fear of contagion fear, and how to cope with the psychological impact of coronavirus. What are people going to do with depression, with anxiety, as they hide, as they take matters into their own hand, as they start using drugs to try to cope, as they avoid things, as they blame people? It's going to really, and I do want to say that there are many credible sources of news by very reputable agencies and highly trained medical experts that are giving us the real picture of what's going on, and certainly they've been saying it's not a question of if, it's not a question of if more than when and to what extent will be the effect. So I did want to let the viewers know that I'm sensitive to this huge health crisis, and I want to talk about it on March 19th. So any comments on these things? And then we're going to go into some hate crimes definition. So anything to add right now?
Well, people should not be freaking out right now. They should really be sort of calm. The truth is that hospitals are preparing themselves for an influx if it happens, but the government, just forget your political side, the political points of view, the government is working very hard to make sure that the country stays pretty away from people who have this virus. So we have very few in America, and I work in a hospital, and we're very prepared. We're ready for everything. If it should happen, we hope it doesn't happen. You said when instead of if. We'll see. We'll see how good the country protects us.
Okay, but it doesn't prevent the outbreak of anxiety and panic and fear,
But I will say one thing people can do until you have your show is they should be washing their hands for real. They should wash their hands for 20 seconds. Use soap and water. They should really be not touching their face and mouth. That's how you get it. And if they're washing hands in the hospital, washing hands is one of the biggest things we do. So I recommend people, until you watch Roy's show in a few weeks, could wash your hands. I'm not kidding. Very important.
I think 30 seconds is better than 20. And also use a paper towel when you walk out of the bathroom and when you flush. So.
Right, and also I actually think it's important to realize that we should all probably get the general flu vaccine, and I have done some reading that has shown that the flu vaccine does have the potential to not necessarily ensure that you don't get coronavirus, but if you do, it will likely be a milder case. So, as Lenny said, washing your hands is always the best protection.
Well, the idea of a flu virus is that the body's taking a half-dead virus, so obviously you don't get the full effects of the flu. Mm-hmm. But then what it does is it prepares the body's own natural resources, because the body's is attacking the attackers, so that you have this inside of your body, and it sort of helps you to have the additional protection in your body. So let's look at some definitions now. Slide 6, por favor. So hate crimes, I just want to give you a little bit of a definition and background. The FBI defines a hate crime as a violent or property crime, including murder, arson, assault, or vandalism motivated by bias against a race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates approximately 250,000 hate crime victimizations each year since 2004. I suspect it's getting higher, especially now with the advent of coronavirus. I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see a spike in that. We have approximately 9 out of 10 hate crimes involve violence, so it's certainly something that it's not just people hurling insults at you and maybe damaging your property, but you're actually getting hurt in the process. About 60% racial bias is the motivating factor. Hispanics face more violence as immigration heats up, so we've pretty much seen this as the rhetoric of what's happening in the border, and that all the immigrants that are coming into the country are mareros, are gang members, or committing crimes and so forth. So when you get that kind of rhetoric, you're getting spikes in the incidence of bias and hate crimes. Increased attacks on the Jewish community is unprecedented. I don't know if you have any statistics, but from what I was seeing, it's like it's not even. I mean, it's increasing.
It's increasing.
You'd like to think that we're getting all of these, that we're getting the government and law enforcement. They're doing things to try to protect the organizations and the Jewish culture, but you're getting spikes and increases. So you're sort of wondering what's going on, and I have some thoughts about that. There's like a modeling effect, and there seems to be a breaking down of barriers, and maybe some people are becoming more immune to hateful words and aggressive language, and they're just taking it in stride now, and the jokes are becoming funny, and people either are not doing anything, or they're not reacting anymore, or they're becoming what's called desensitized. They're just not bothered by it anymore, or they're afraid of some retaliation.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important to mention, even though we're focusing on the U.S., is that these crimes are continuing to happen actually internationally in a way I don't recall them happening for a very long time. So it's not just the U.S. that's dealing with these issues, but many other countries as well. So
what's happening? Because it's a
it's many things,
political, economic, I guess, kind of thing.
It's not one thing; it's many things. I mean, if you think about Jew hatred, it's actually many different things. Some are religious from, you said, other countries. My rabbi is from Scotland and England, and he said years ago it's going to come here. So Shara's right; things did not just start here. But there are different kinds of hate crimes. It's not one kind of crime. Some is out of ignorance. Some is out of fear. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's even young kids that want to be macho, and they say, that kid over there in Williamsburg or in Borough Park, I'm gonna knock him in the head because I'm gonna be cool. He doesn't even know what a Jew actually might even really is. So Here's a kid who's looks like he's pale and bent over and he's studying the victim, and the kid's going to be a tough guy because the kid's not going to fight back. If it was Israeli with muscles and a muscle shirt, I don't think he's going to knock his yarmulke off so quickly. Some of it is ignorance, macho-ness. Some of it is political. And there's more. And actually, this is not popular because I'm as a psychologist. I work with kids who are violent. I work with kids who've murdered. And I also always look for where is the mental illness. I'm not.
If there is a mental illness.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the hate crime is not just a political issue, but there are some people, some of them, who indeed maybe a person who has a thought to hate a black person, a Spanish person, a Jewish person, they have a thought, but they don't do anything. There are those people who get into action. Mm-hmm. Some of them have a disinhibition, some have a neurological problem, some are low IQ, some are other things going on mentally. Also, their families play a part in this. So it's not just one type of hate crime. There are many issues.
Of course.
And I don't want to blame mentally ill people. Most mentally ill people do not do it, but I look at those who do. And we'll talk more about it later. But
the majority of mentally ill are not the ones that are committing the violent.
But the ones that I see are the ones that do. But again, there are more. We can't have a one type of hate crime, for one reason.
I still think that based on my studies and my writings and what I've looked at, that there is a propensity now to desensitize. You're getting exposed to this on the news so much. You turn on the TV and watch the news, and you get like many news stations, but you get like the news recycling over and over again. But on the bottom of the screen, you're getting like scrolled across the screen. You're getting up to date information, such and such. So we're being bombarded with news.
And crime.
We are, and I actually, personally, last night I was watching the news and heard about the killing of 5 people in Wisconsin, and I heard myself in my head go, "Oh God, not another one." And then it was like, no, this is horrible, but they're also horrible. How much can you take in emotionally? And how much empathy can you have when you are bombarded?
Yeah, the brain begins to shut down. Mm-hmm. You focus on something. You become dismissive of it the more it happens, I think. That's what I mean by the desensitization. Yeah. And then if certain kinds of action aren't taking place, then you say, well, what's the point? And it didn't happen to me, and as long as it doesn't happen in my area, it is what it is, and we move on. Right. We move on to something else. Not wanting to get into the recent conviction of a sex predator over 30 plus years, but that kind of attention as a result of the conviction is something that at least I think empowers the public and empowers the victims, because they now feel more supported and able to come forward. But I don't know about victims of Jewish hate crimes or gay crimes, to what extent they feel comfortable coming forward, or will they just be laughed at or bullied or made fun of? And I think that's a large, cultural.
I'm going to add something to your conversation.
We're not all one. It's like we're so many of us, but so what? It's not me.
There's the thing called the bystander effect. When everything's been last few years have been about bullying. So bullying is not about hate crimes. Bullying is about bullying. But also, what makes a bully work is that people are afraid to say anything. They're afraid to jump in. I just viewed a 30-second tape of 2 kids in Bayside, 2 teenage girls fighting, and no kid stepped in to try to stop it. No one did that. So there's a bullying. There's a big bystander effect. We have to train people to not be bystanders. And the same when it comes to racial hatred. Yeah. And other things. So part of it is so many things going on that are variables in making this happen.
I think that the electronic media feed adds to this, going back to 9/11, and 9/11 at this point in time is it's been 18 years. But if you go back to 9/11 and you remember that we saw the North Tower, we saw the South Tower coming down thousands of times, and then the North Tower, because we're seeing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That had an effect, and the children who were watching it obviously had an effect. And this is like 18 years ago. We're seeing this more and more and more of it now, and there's something to say, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later about like things to do to cope with this. And obviously, parents, things that they need to do with their children to cope with this is make sure they're not exposed to this as much as they are, at least through the news media, because in real life they will be exposed to it at school. Bullying, things like that, schoolyard, and kids who are on computers, and they're more computer literate and savvy than their parents now. So parents, word of advice, you need to know what your kids, what their abilities are and what they're doing on computers. You know, privacy goes so far. You need to like be careful that they don't go so far that they're actually doing things that they shouldn't be doing that could put themselves or other people in harm's way. Let's look at targets of hate crimes. Oscar del Siete. I mentioned this briefly when I gave the definition that the FBI has on hate crimes. I also wanted to mention that by the way, you know, hate crimes is actually a crime was committed, but you don't have to have a hate crime. A hate bias is not a hate crime. When somebody issues insults or derogatory comments, or they do things verbally assault you, or bullying, or online, or on the internet and things like that. That could very well be a hate bias incident without necessarily rising to the level of a crime. We also have what are called microaggressions, where people make all of these little comments about, oh, that little girl, oh, she's Hispanic, so God bless her. When she grows up, she'll be a cleaning lady. I mean, that's a microaggression. So, obviously, these are some issues that people are experiencing and dealing with all the time. Targets, race, cultural, I gave you quite a few. If I left anyone out, my apologies. I tried to include as much as I could. Sexual orientation, gender bias, again, anti-female, male, lesbian. I mean, it covers the gamut. Religion, many religions are victims of hate bias. Disability, mental, people who have mental health problems or intellectual limitations, and physical biases as well. What I put at the bottom, this is a screenshot from a presentation. It's not a presentation, it's accessible on the internet. But this is something that these are abuses that I was picking up through a project that's working with people who are victims of these kinds of incidents at the border, at the Mexico-U.S. border. And you'll see that even here, they focus on race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability. What are the effects of hate crimes? Next, por favor, Oscar, slide 8, el ocho. These are some of the things, those of you who have, viewers who have watched the show before, you'll be familiar with terms such as post-traumatic stress, physical reactions, tension headaches, stomach distress, problems moving bowels, depression, anxiety, concerns about your own safety, problems with your image, self-esteem is lessened, startling easily. You go like this and people will jump. Having recurrent thoughts and flashbacks, that means that you're going to think about the incident over and over and over again. A flashback could be a visual, auditory image in your brain with your eyes closed. You'll sort of see it again inside your head, or you'll hear something like a curse word or somebody yelling at you. Those are the flashbacks. Increased anger, loss of self-esteem that I mentioned before.
You mentioned personal safety, right? That was one of on your list, personal safety. I have to say safety concerns. I have to tell you this is unbelievable. I'm an Orthodox Jew. I don't wear a yarmulke during my working hours, and after some of those crimes, when I go to work, I don't wear a yarmulke, but I do wear it in my personal life, and I'm on the subway, I'm on the street. And after those recent crimes in Borough Park and in Williamsburg, I said, I'm wearing a yarmulke. I said, I wonder, am I safe? I actually said, am I safe? Am I really safe? Is someone going to hit me because I'm a Jew? And I'm sort of publicly looking like a Jew. And I haven't had those thoughts in maybe, I can't tell you my age, but 50, 60 years I haven't had such a thought like that. Here in America, in New York, it was unbelievable. And I was conscious, like, how could I think that? This is New York. This is America. How could I think about I should wear a yarmulke? So when you say personal safety or personal issues, it really it had an effect on me. And I'm someone who's trained to fight back, but I was worried. I was worried. So it's important.
I was just going to say, I can say a similar thing, being a lesbian and going through some really dark years when there were a lot of hate crimes, and then there was more of an acceptance. But now, because of the tenor of the times, I all of a sudden feel a danger that I haven't felt in a very, very long time. And, well, I know how to defend myself. I also know I'm 5'2", and at quite a disadvantage if someone decides to assault me. So,
you seem taller, Shara.
well, thank you so much.
It's the chair. We artificially added a couple of inches.
And I appreciate it greatly.
I lowered Lenny a little bit, and I increased my height a little bit. I used to be like 6'2", but I have a back injury, and that, that changed things a little bit.
I used to be 6'2" also.
So you've had some serious problems. Scoliosis really hit you. Also, victims of hate crimes. The targeted group, so those who target a particular group, in essence, the message that they're giving them, and it was in the slide before, so I'm not going to ask Oscar to show it again, but in the slide that I already had up on slide 8, it's to let those members of that group, like what you were saying, know that they're not welcome, and as a result, you are left feeling vulnerable and not safe. Hate crimes affect other vulnerable groups as well, because others could be targeted. So if you're targeted, hey, next it's going to be I'm going to be targeted, and it disrupts the harmony and divides people who live together. So you have people living together, and then as a result of it, these people might become more suspicious of those, or saying, well, I'm not going to interfere because if I do something, then I'm going to start being targeted. Right. So it disrupts the harmony of the community. And I suppose those who are interested in doing the harm, it's one of their purposes is to do that, because they disrupt the community, and that's one of the things that they're looking to accomplish.
And they do it because they feel weak. They feel weak.
Right.
They just feel weak, and that's their power. They're gonna terrorize somebody.
Let's focus on some interventions. Slide 9. I'm going to go over this fairly quickly because there would be really too time-consuming, and I'd have to add like another show or two to cover all of these interventions. There's law enforcement, of course. We know what the police do. We know that we can count on them. You need to report them. People who are undocumented should not fear the police. They are there to help you and to protect you. So you really need to try to be aware that law enforcement, they're there to protect us. Political, there are ways of communicating with the politicians, the assemblymen, congressmen in your area. There's ways to communicate with them through the internet, by phone, going to visit them. There's ways to make your voice heard, so that if there's certain things that are troubling to you, that would be political. Obviously, voting. Voting is important. Sitting back, ignoring it, and saying, why bother? My vote isn't going to count, and that's just taking a defeatist attitude. So really, I think political ultimately is probably where the buck has to go that high. I mean, it's got to go all the way up, really, ultimately, for us to get that kind of protection.
Well, it does, and there's also group organizing. Think of the Me Too movement. Think
Some
of
grassroots. It started as grassroots, and now it's become all over the place. Like
Right.
you see hundreds of marches, and you'll see the camaraderie that takes place throughout the country.
And I even think some of the groups that you belong to, like
What about
the
her?
Jewish organization of resources, I mean, it brings groups together to say, we can also do something in addition to the government or other people, because it's empowering to feel like I'm not such a target, or if I am, there's something I can do.
And someone has my back, and also something we can do as a group.
Well,
Yes.
you posted something interesting, and I won't get into the content of it, but you posted something interesting on a listserv that I'm a member of, on New York State Psychological Association, about people who are experiencing being victimized by insurance companies, being able, if you hit a wall, no matter what you do, you hit a wall. You've got to somehow figure a way to go around that wall and see what other resources are available, and use your mouth and somehow stand up for yourself. And you did that. You did that successfully yourself, and you gave that information out on the listserv, and I compliment you for that, because basically it's similar here in the sense that if you don't get a solution by talking to your assemblyman, if you don't get a call back, and chances are you won't get a call back because they get thousands of messages. So if you don't feel that somehow your needs are being heard or they fall on deaf ears, don't stop. Look to see what else you can do, what other organization, grassroots movements. There always are things that you can do to go above and beyond that, to the point that the voice will be heard. Because when you have thousands, when you have one, nobody's going to hear it. You have 10, chances are nobody's going to hear it. You have a couple of dozen, maybe. By the time you have 1,000, somebody's raising an eyebrow, and then you get into the 100,000.
But even one person's
you've got a
voice,
movement,
Roy.
and you've got a voice.
I'm going to say this will make a therapist a better therapist if they follow Shara's advice and they don't give up and they keep fighting. When they have a patient who gives up, they're going to have the power to show the person not to give up. If they give up, they're going to be a lousy therapist. They're not going to be a good role model. They're not going to feel powerful. Same with the family. If a dad or a mom fights, even to get a stoplight put on the street, they're going to fight until they get it done. The kids will see that. A lot of them go into politics later on. They're going to see so it's true you want one organization with power, but if one parent or one psychologist keeps fighting, keeps speaking,
well, it's a role model. It's a role model. It's a learning effect, and you're passing it on. Obviously, the children is going to be different than patients, but the children will see, wow, this is like what my parents did, and I'm now going to do it myself. Otherwise,
and I've seen it
why
in many
bother?
places, many times that happens.
So we also have, there's obviously mental health experts that people can go to if they are in fact affected by post-traumatic stress or depression or anxiety or behavioral changes, or they are aware of a family member who is suffering from that, or they're affected because their mother may have been, raped because of her orientation or where she's from culturally or what her religion is. So you can certainly seek professional help. I'm going to give you resources at the end of the show. But basically, we're looking at, as a psychologist, I put down psychological treatment, but it's not limited to psychology. There's social workers, there's pastoral counselors, licensed mental health counselors, psychiatrists. There's many people out there who specialize in treating those who have emotional issues or mental health needs. And there's many methods: psychotherapy, cognitive behavior therapy. Some of these are things that I've talked about before. I don't want to dwell too much into it.
Some of us have been trained, I think you've done it also, I'm trained in disaster response. So after the first World Trade Center bombing and after some Flight 100 crashes, I've been involved in trauma response. And sometimes a short intervention after the trauma will help a person manage and actually prevent PTSD.
Right.
Even after Hurricane Sandy, and Hurricane Sandy devastated so many people, I was one of the people going around to different hospitals, training the staff how to manage their own anxiety after their house was destroyed, and also how they can help themselves, not just only therapy, but how they can soothe themselves, strengthen themselves by something that does work, and then they're okay. So we can actually prevent chronic illnesses if we intervene.
Yeah, there are many models for doing this, and I think that some of the models stem from airplane crashes where they had teams that worked with the survivors. But we talked about this, I think, on a show about disaster recently, but talking about doing a triage, and obviously, you got to make sure life is first and foremost. And that, where you're dealing with emotional trauma, this is where what Lenny's talking about, to the extent that you do something immediately. After the Charlottesville thing, there were people who were actually in mental health places who were actually asking for help. And I know I had volunteered to go down myself with a couple of other individuals through the Disaster Resource Network of Neurostate Psychological Association to help because of the impact, the immediate falling out and impact of the Charlottesville attack. And you also see this in schools when they, like in Orlando, the mass shootings,
Parkland
in schools, Parkland and all that, where in schools they're setting up crisis teams to come in and do some counseling. That's part of what you're saying, doing something immediately. And this is where obviously psychologists and other kinds of experts can intervene. Por favor, slide 10. Briefly, I wanted to show the viewers what some hate crime laws are. I just want to bring it out to your attention without belaboring at length. But there are laws, as you can see. Congress, they passed the Hate Crime Statistics Act in 1990. Data is being collected. There's Hate Crimes Act. These were amended. Church Arson Prevention Act. And so forth. We've had these kinds of acts in the FBI expanding religious bias category in 2013. The whole purpose really is to put in some sort of a legal context things that protect the public. So you do have a resource to this. I wanted to give you an idea of what these things are. Take a photograph of the slide or screenshot later if you have any interest in these things. Por favor, we're going to move into risk management. I wanted to wrap up el slide 11. I wanted to wrap up a little bit with what risk management is. Risk management really means what are the kinds of things that people can do personally or in an organization or as part of a community to enhance and increase their safety. A lot of this that I'm putting up for the viewers, these are things that have been developed over many, many years of doing research. It's a complex, risk management is a very complex field that has many, many, many players. And much of it is a learning experience. What have we learned based on prior events, prior incidents? So I just wanted briefly to touch base with places of worship, since we have Lenny here as a guest, and because of what motivated my doing this program in the first place, what happened at the rabbi's home. But it's obviously not limited only to places of worship. This could apply to sporting events, and we've also seen this at carnivals. We've seen this outdoors at festivals and shootings outside of hotels. So what are some of the things that people can do? Like very briefly, things like a security team, monitoring, locking doors, some of the things you can look down. I don't want to go through the entire list. It goes on though.
People should know
slide 12,
the statement
12.
that if someone sees something, say something. So people have to be trained even in the churches or synagogues about someone's there and they look suspicious, tell someone in authority, and they'll investigate. They just should not keep their mouth shut. It's that very basic thing.
Some additional things, smoke detectors. Make sure the smoke detectors work. I mean, if you're going to have them, make sure that
Stop
they
smoking.
work. Sprinkler systems that work. Windows that work and are protected. Fencing that works and it's in good shape. The area around the establishment is maintained, free of debris. I've seen schools where in the backyard you've got rocks, pebbles, things that have fallen and broken that aren't swept up and aren't removed. Those could be used as weapons. They could be thrown into the glass of the school. Night lights. Many crimes, many victims, many people are attacked in dark areas because the lights don't work. They broke. So things like some of these are such common sense, simple solution. Make sure that shrubs and trees are trimmed. I don't know what your thoughts might be, but I added, for instance, if possible, greet worshipers. So if you already know them, obviously, but you might be able to, if it's like July and it's 100 degrees outside and somebody comes into your organization, with a heavy winter coat, it's probably reasonable to suspect that this person may be up to no good. Not, that it has to be, but it's something to keep an eye on. These are some simple common things. Conducting drills and also professional development. I would really add as well maintaining contact with law enforcement, with other similar organizations, so that you have a contact. There's a contact network, and if you have a cell phone, on your own cell phone, have one of those alarm apps. Puedes sacar a slide. Lenny, anything to add to that?
I want to add something. Churches, mosques, synagogues, those are not public domains. I am the chief usher of my synagogue, and we welcome everybody, at least we did. And then I was trained in counterterrorism and in security, and they said these are a church, a mosque, and a synagogue. They're private institutions. We welcome people, but we can say you cannot come in. If we think someone is really in danger, we can say you cannot come in. And I was like shocked. I said, how can I say that? But we do say that, and I think you don't need to have technology for that or smoke detectors. Look at people. If they don't seem to belong, you're not insulting them. Sometimes you have to say they can't come in. That's rare, but you have to do that also.
Ponme slide 13. We're coming close to the end. I want to make sure we fit everything in before Oscar starts giving me his.
I hope he doesn't hate
his hand expressions that are not biased in any way. I wanted also to talk about risk management for people in general. What are some of the things that you, in going outside, can do? Some of these are also common sense. I just wanted to go over go over it a little bit with you. Know how to go to your destination. If you don't know where you're going and you're by yourself, try to figure out ahead of time what are the directions, or have a GPS, or have it on your phone. Figure out.
Well, because we got lost coming here.
Know where you're going, and then I sent them the directions, and I even gave them a map. But you have to have some idea, awareness. You have to be alert and observant. Sometimes
take the earphones off. Take those earphones off. Take the buds out.
Well, crossing streets, people get hit by cars. They're texting. They're on the phones all the time. You go shopping and your car's parked in a dark corner of the parking lot, and you're looking at your bag as you're opening the door. You're a potential target. Make sure your phone is charged, locked, you have a panic button. Limit the number of items, packages you carry. Limit how much money you have. Limit the number of credit cards that you take with you as well. Someone should know where you are. Hopefully you have contact, family member, friend, somebody to have an idea where you are. Know the area and routes where you're going and any obstructions and closings. This applies, if you're going to parades or things like that, or you're going out on major holidays, major events, are particular streets going to be closed? How are you going to get there? Where are you going to park the car? Examine places as you enter. Does something look wrong about it? Is there something not right about it? Consider the lighting and time of day. For you to be safe at 3 a.m, it's not necessarily the same in the middle of the day at 3 o'clock. 3 p.m. You have to consider time and lighting condition.
Look for the exit signs when you go to any place. Movies, look for the exit signs when you come in. A new restaurant, a new place of worship.
Very good,
Where the
exactly.
exercise.
Public gatherings. Is it during peak time or there's nobody there? If you're on the subway, you're on the platform, at the furthest end of the platform all by yourself, not such a good idea. Try to be closer to people. Have a rapid safety crisis intervention plan. Try to think to yourself, what would I do if something were to happen? Be aware of the presence of law enforcement and others who could assist you if need be. If you're in a parade, if you're in a mall, wherever it is that you might be in a public place. Trust your instinct. I wrote here, trust your gut. But if something doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right, don't ignore it. Go with it. If you feel that you need to leave, not be somewhere, I would suggest avoid it. Puedes sacar ese slide. Any comments about this or anything that you need to add to that thing? Because we're going to get into resources and then
with houses of worship, sometimes by the time someone comes that's a bad person, a bad actor comes, it may be too late. So the people in charge of their mosque, synagogue, church, they need to look around their building, but also see if people are sort of across the street looking at them, observing what they do, and then coming back a week later because they've cased the joint. So if you see people that don't belong there, even across the street, pay attention to them, call the cops also.
That's people who are in more of an administrative role. But you probably also have congregants that are regulars.
But
who would be in a position of being able to say, gee, this
yeah.
doesn't look right to me.
Yeah.
We've seen this. We've seen people intervene quickly because they were quick and they were eyeballing. They saw something is not right.
I can just say, having taught in a variety of settings for over 25 years, that I've had to deal with students who either had some kind of disturbance or were just hostile and angry in the classroom, and I learned that you contact security. You contact someone who has a different kind of an authority and is trained to deal with people who are potentially dangerous, because I have seen many a teacher get hurt simply because they tried to intervene in a situation where they really should have left someone who was a professional to do it. So I think it's important to think about who's best capable of managing a situation rather than thinking you can simply just go out there and deal with it yourself.
Let me also add that if you speak to a police officer, law enforcement, safety, somebody, make a note of the name, write it down, make a note of a badge number, phone number. Don't just assume later you're going to remember it, you won't. So make a note of these things. I'm going to share some of the resources. We're coming to an end, slide 14. So at the top of the resources, I provided you with, es el 14, with resources that are intended to help victims of crime. I've given you the website there, the top one. National Center for Victims of Crime underneath that. They're an advocacy organization committed to working on behalf of crime victims and their families. So if you or family member, somebody, friend, who has been a victim of crime, these are useful resources for you. The third one, Secure and Emergency Resources. This is a wonderful, wonderful wealth of information that's provided by the Jewish Community Relations Council. And I wanted to thank Lenny here, who actually made me aware of this resource. This gives you a wealth of resources, and it's not just because you are Jewish. I mean, it's wonderful wealth of information.
My friends in churches,
take a look at it. It's really wonderful. As I've done before on New York State Psychological Association and the American Psychological Association, I list their addresses, websites, phone numbers. Of course, every state has psychological associations. We've gone through that before. So what I wanted to do now in closing, puedes sacar a slide. Shara, did you have a phone number or an address or something that you wanted to make available to viewers who may want to contact you?
Sure. If you'd like to reach me, the best way to do it is 212-666-5376. And if you Google my name, there aren't many of me, so my website will come up and you can see other contact information as well as other information pertaining to my practice.
Just if you want to just repeat the phone number again.
212-666-5376. 888-888-7676.
Great. Lenny, any contact for you? Or
Nope. I work at Metropolitan Hospital, and I take care of people that are in the hospital.
Okay.
So if you're out there, stay out there.
But viewers know how to reach me, through the TV show. You have my phone number also. I wanted to give big thanks to you, Shara. Really big hand. I want to give you a hug too.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a huggy type of person. Lenny bendito. Lenny has some Hispanic background, don't you?
Yes.
Do you want to share quickly with that before Oscar kicks me off?
My mother's from Buenos Aires, Argentina, La Argentina. My stepfather is from Cuba. My father-in-law is from Puerto Rico.
Boricua power.
And actually my Jewish Polish-born father lived and worked in Puerto Rico also. So and my wife's from the Virgin Islands, but many people go to Puerto Rico from there. So yes, I'm an honorary Latino.
So thank you both for being here. You both came, a long trip for you from Manhattan. I'm much closer. So I wanted to thank you. The show's being, as I said, recorded. It's going to be available immediately on YouTube, tomorrow on Tribuna TV, Facebook, Vimeo. And don't forget, March 19th is going to be the show on coronavirus panic, anxiety, and dealing with the fear of contagion. Lastly, everybody, please keep your wits about you. Be safe. Be concerned about your neighbors. Be very careful about the hand washing and some proper hygienic things to tend to right now in light of, possibility of coronavirus down the road. Certainly flu.
Can I promote your show now to your viewers? If this is the first show they've ever seen of your show, if they go to YouTube and they whether Google Roy Aranda or TTV, they'll see a whole series of shows that Roy has put together about many psychological topics, which I watch, are fascinating. So this is one show that I'm on, but you're doing a great service. I'm serious. So
Thank you.
Roy did not pay me to say this, but that's really true. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oscar and I are celebrating our 30th show. Today's number 30. So, Don Oscar, muchas gracias. You didn't mess up too much today. Thank you very much.
Cumpleaños feliz. Cumpleaños feliz.
So, gracias a todos. Buenas noches. Be good to one another. And I'll see you soon. Okay? Good night.